Okay, so I want to welcome you guys to the first module of a three-part series on DevOps fundamentals. Let's just go over some housekeeping uh, activities before we get started. Um, you can always stop me anytime. Since this is not a webinar, you can stop me anytime and feel free to ask me questions and I'll answer your queries. Okay, so this is just a brief introduction of the course. We are going to talk about DevOps fundamentals. We're going to do the first part of DevOps fundamentals today. I'm just going to unmute my phone. Okay. Um, uh, we we will see what we cover in fundamentals in the next slide, but we also have an offering on the manager course and on a practitioner course. Practitioner course would be a fully hands-on on some of those tools. The manager course would be basically on what you would do as a manager if you run a DevOps project. Are there dysfunctional signs that you would see in your environment uh, that would prompt you to adapt to DevOps? How would you assess the maturity of DevOps? How would you organize your teams? And of course, there are always challenges that you have to overcome. The practitioner, we go through some of these tools, we have some labs on it, and we just go through it. But let's see what we do in the DevOps fundamental course. We want to first see what are our existing challenges, and from those challenges, we will see how DevOps comes into the picture. What are some of the factors we need to consider? We will see integration with other frameworks like Lean, Agile, and ITIL. We will see what are the best practice for DevOps, and then of course impact on ITSM. But we'll only cover the first three today because that's all we have time for today. Okay, so if you look at the slide, you see three personalities. On your left, you have operations, then you have business in the middle, and then you have development on the right hand side. Um, Business would require development team to deliver new features. Business also has concerns with operations team in terms of the money that is being spent out in outages, to which operations would blame development and say dev is causing me outages with all these frequent updates to production behind my back, which means that these updates happen not in a very controlled manner. So that is a pain point from an ops perspective, to which the dev would say, I'm just trying to crank out the code as quickly as possible, and ops is slowing me down. So this is what you would see in any environment. There are always conflicts between dev, ops, and business. Okay, now let's see. We want to take a step back and see how has been how are you working up until this point? From where have we come from? Um, well, we had business folks ready to hand over requirements to development team, and then we had development team who would build, design, test, and then of course hand over to the operations team. And in operations, they deployed the code and everything worked as expected. Well, not always so. In fact, it rarely worked as expected. Um, the norm was that business always thought that they had communicated everything to development, and development thought that they had built the right way, the right service. But then in operations, you realize that development either build the right service the wrong way, or they just build the wrong service in the first place. Now on investigation, we realize all these things. Now, what is the impact of that happening? And this is what the impact is. Um, you always, the development team follows in a waterfall mechanism where it's very sequential, and so it takes a long while for something to go out the gate to operations. And sometimes the errors are detected so far into the release cycle that you really cannot go back and change a lot, and you're running out of time anyway. So the impact of business is IT is a very slow responder. They're not agile. They are pretty static. A lot of hours goes wasted in terms of resources. Either they are underutilized, and then all those things sort of result into cost and risk. Now, that was our past. Now we have moved a long way from that particular point in time, and we adopted agile. The industry adopted agile at least a decade back or more, and most organizations are into that agile way of doing things today. Now there is a lot more collaboration, and you see there's a lot more collaboration between dev and business. uh, Development team would work off the same product backlog that has been defined by business. They would pick the high priority items as defined by business. So in a sense, business and development is still in sync with each other, but it's the operations team that has got concerns because they still see um, failures. They need to contend with failures, misconfigurations, and of course lead time uh, to deploy and provision services. So in a sense, the operations is not as agile as the development team, because operations have got their own concerns in the sense that most of the changes fail in operations. So since the focus in operations is on stability, they are less resistant to adopt the agile way of doing things unless they are promised high quality services. And so what is the result of this? The result of this is that the development team is now being very agile. They produce a lot more releases, a lot more patches and changes, but then operations is not in a state to sort of consume it or take it to and deliver it to operations. So they're always skeptical of. Now the point is, where do we want to be? We naturally want dev and ops to be in sync, or sort of play sing off the same sheet. So the bringing together of development and operations is what we call as DevOps, because you see there are two words brought together, but then they are brought together. This pursuit of bringing them together is really what is DevOps. Um, Now we want to be very sure about the fact that having done this, or in a pursuit of doing this, we do not want to sacrifice on stability as well as agility. We want to be agile. At the same time, operations always needs us to deploy services which are top quality and at the right rate. Now, if we if we pursue this and we achieve this utopian state of working, then we deliver things fast. That means we are agile. Our team is working good. We have less defects, which means top quality, and our resources are used in the right manner. So naturally, the productivity of our team is now up. Now, now um, this is why we really require DevOps. The DevOps promises agility and stability put together, faster time to market at a pace that business wants us to, and of course, good quality. Now, I want you to read this particular statement written by Clyde, and then I'll just talk about it after 30 seconds. Okay, so what this means is that when the agile movement caught hold of the IT industry, the business and development team sort of, they were in sync, but it unintentionally left the operations team behind. Now we need to get them also on board, and that's why DevOps is a way for business to regain the trust of the entire IT organization, not just development team. So we all want all these three partners have to come together and need to ensure that they work in a very synchronous manner, delivering quality services to customers. Okay, now something that you want to think about is, many times we work in silos and we have this attitude of blaming someone else. But I want you to sort of abstract yourself out from IT. I know all of you guys play IT roles, but I just want you to step back. Put yourself in the shoes of business. Who gives IT work? Let's say Johnson and Johnson, okay, the pharmaceutical company. So there's a Johnson and Johnson business team that will go out to the Johnson and Johnson IT team and say, okay, this is what we want you to deliver. We want you to do better analytics on the drugs that go out, good QA checks, get to know field feedbacks, and when the IT team cannot live up to the expectation of business, it is not IT that fails. It is really business that fails. So Forrester has this to say, without the good interpersonal harmony, your business cannot adapt to changes in a fast moving competitive landscape. So because the pace in which business is changing has rapidly increased in the last, say, maybe 4 or 5 years, we folks in IT have to be cognizant of it, and we need to support that, because if we do not support it, if we are never, see, an IT, if it is never a complementer of business, if it is never an enabler of business, then you very soon you lose value, and we are out to be outsourced, and we are gone out the gate. Okay, so we just went over some challenges, and now I sort of want to get to know from you guys, are you clear on what we covered so far? Are there things that you have questions about? So there's a time for you to sort of speak out, and maybe I can answer some of your queries in case you are in doubt. Go ahead. Okay, so what is DevOps? So this is what Wikipedia, this is how Wikipedia would define DevOps. And I want you to pay attention to certain keywords. DevOps is a software development method that stresses communication, collaboration, and integration between software developers and information technology operation professionals. What I don't want you to pick out is software development method. Okay, now remember this Wikipedia. Okay, yeah, so it's good, but it may not necessarily be a technical definition. Okay, so don't be hung up on those things. What I want you to focus on is the fact that it is stressing communication, it is stressing collaboration and integration. So those are good three words which sort of summarizes the pursuit or the focus of DevOps. The second statement says DevOps is a response to the interdependence of software development and operation. Now remember, see, this particular interdependence was always there. There was no one in IT, even a decade back, who did not realize the need to collaborate with operations or with development. Okay, so it's not something that came out from the blue. Okay, there was always the pursuit or the realization to interface and collaborate. But what happened was that we were limited by n number of things, and we'll sort of talk about it. We were limited by n number of factors which made it difficult to collaborate, or shall we say smart collaborating. Now what really changed the game, according to me, is virtualization or cloud computing, right? Because that is basically built on virtualization. Today we have the ability to mimic production servers, which we never had that particular luxury maybe 10-15 years back. So development team had to sort of work off on whatever environment was given to them, assuming that production is similar to it, and we tried some load testing, stress testing, assuming that those tests were really the right ones. But I think virtualization has come about and brought about this particular, it has really, so the tools have come to aid us, and you find all these DevOps tools that has come to aid us and lead us in this particular pursuit. Okay, so DevOps is a cultural and professional movement. again, that's stressing on communication, collaboration, integration. Why the emphasis on culture? Now, the issue here is that um, it's not just about tools and processes and the way you organize yourself, but it's also about the culture. It's going to bring about a change in which we have been used to working. So 70% of DevOps projects fail because the culture stands as an obstacle. So you want to be very sure that the cultural aspect is addressed, in fact, almost at the very beginning. And then, of course, the chance of you failing is a lot less if you were to address the cultural issues. Now, what has been the result? And you can go to the Puppet survey reports, very extensive reports. Um, but in a nutshell, if I tell what is the result of having adopted DevOps, now remember these are not adopted by some small startup companies. Okay, now there are companies like Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, AWS, yeah, Amazon, AWS, uh, huge dividends they have gained and they have recorded. And this is a problem, when I talk to delivery managers, you should be on top of this, because if you are not on top of this, or if you're unaware of this, you can pretty much take it home that your customers are talking about it. So if you manage, let's say, Johnson and Johnson's IT environment, the Johnson and Johnson as a customer is already knowing about. He's reading the Gartner reports. He pretty much knows that this is something that he has to contend with. So if we do not speak about it, and if we do not drive in that direction, the customer would look upon us as a service provider who is perhaps ignorant of these technological trends. Okay, now coming back to the screen, what is the result? Well, you see a 30 times probability of delivering something if you were to adopt DevOps, which means that an organization that adopts DevOps is able to deliver 30 times more releases than another company who doesn't adopt DevOps. So huge competitive advantage. The time to market is now reduced, and we can deliver features faster than our competition. And if you go look at the right bottom, the deployment frequency, this is that's what you mentioned. Development lead time, deployment lead time, that the time you would take to deploy something is increased by 200%. Okay, the time that you would take to recover is reduced by 168%, or the mean time to recover is now reduced by 168% than if you would go without DevOps, which means that you could catch things faster, the wrong things faster, before it goes down out the gate. And of course, change success rate is as much as 60%. That's huge. If you just look into the change, I think the industry success is around 25%. So here we're saying 60% more than what your current level. So huge dividends if we adopt. And these are not numbers out there tried by big companies, not small 3-member team companies. DevOps is not a tool or a title or a team. It is not just related to or relegated to a culture or just doing high level of automation. It's also not a no ops. Okay, now there are two opinions on this. So one opinion says, well, we are going from a DevOps state where business, dev, and operations are in sync, but because of the high level of automation, we are going towards a state where we would have a no ops, which means that you don't want people in operations at all. Development guys can do it all. So they are talking about a marriage between these two teams, and then you write your own code and deploy it. There are opinions which saying that it's not going to happen. You will still need to some people, but then I think the industry is too early in the game to make a judgment there. But of course, we are going to see a lot of automation that come to play, and that's going to sort of change the landscape in which we operate. Okay. Um, Now we want to talk about the factors. What should you really consider when you embrace DevOps? Is it as plain as just plugging a new software into application, or is it just one big team meeting where everyone feels energetic and okay, now tomorrow onwards we are on DevOps. So are there some, uh, if we talk about collaboration, because we always collaborated, I don't think there was the issue on collaboration, but how do we do smart collaboration? Now, of course, we in the earlier diagrams you saw these walls being built between development and business and operations. So is it just merely tearing down these walls? So will that take us somewhere? Okay, now here um, this map has become very popular because everyone uses this particular diagram. On your right is Mexico, on your left is US, and you have the wall in between. Even if you just a cursory look at what is on your right and left, you know that the value system of the people staying here is different from the value system that people stay here. Maybe some people are very conscious of environment, some people are not conscious, some people have better control, some people do not have control. So if you just remove the wall in between, it's just going to be chaos. So what do we really need to consider when we adopt, or at least we think about adopting DevOps? So we have listed 5 factors that you want to consider, and the first factor is how do you organize yourself? You know, how are teams formed? On what skill are they formed? And traditionally, the way we have organized ourselves is we got functional silos. We got a database team, network team, security team, and all those n number of teams. DevOps is not saying let's just make it as one big team, but what DevOps says that you know um, let us bring them together to operate together. Let's bring the synergy that is there in with each team so that we are not just blaming each other. We don't look at a team level success, but we look at a service delivery success. So in that sense, we want to tear down those walls for sure, but then just merely tearing will not help. We need to organize ourselves better so that we can really deliver value to our customers. On the right hand side, we are talking about how do you measure success. You know, the figure at the on the right, the two guys who are at the far end, you know, for them, they look very successful because there's no work at their end. They've done their work, but you know what they don't realize is if the water cannot be kept out of the boat, they will go in with the other two into the sea. So you know the way we measure success has always been different. See, let's say I'm a development manager. You know, I get my bonus if I can demonstrate to my manager that you know I have delivered so many features with as less resource as possible. I've always delivered on time. We deliver exactly what business asks us to deliver. We have documented everything, and then I would be a hero in that particular space. But now I want you to put yourself in the shoes of an operation, a delivery manager. You know, his metrics are different. His metrics is not how soon you can adopt these changes. His primary metrics is a service stable. So his bonus is based on how often he can hold that service up in operations without any outages. So since we have to agree to the fact that the way you measure different teams are different, and we don't have a common way of measuring success. And that's what DevOps says. You know, it means having common KPIs to measure success. It should be from an end-to-end perspective, not well, I just delivered it over to you and then I'm successful. So that's not the way. So that's something that we need to contend with. And then of course we talk about processes. Here the development team has always embraced agile for more than 1 decade. The ops is with ITL practices. Again, we're not trying to say that they all should adopt one practice, but the point here is, can we bring these different frameworks together so that they all gel well together? And you know, there are a lot of companies who make a lot of I've seen some companies, for example Ford IT, you know, they are bringing all these different frameworks together, whether it's lean framework, the PMP framework, the service management frameworks like ITL, and agile framework. They are bringing them all together so that they all do not speak different languages. We don't want each framework to be successful by itself. We want them all to gel together so that as an organization, they can deliver services at the right rate, but we want to see that they gel well together. They should not sort of oppose each other. Okay, so we want to ensure that we use the best of different frameworks and different processes and use it in a very constructive manner. Um, and then we need to talk about tool sets. The tools have always been different. Development guy would use maybe Eclipse or .NET frameworks. He has a Perforce for his configuration management. He has got something to check memory, maybe Sonar or any of those things. But an ops guy is generally with scripting languages, Perl or Python, and he's in a different world. He does configuration his own way. Now, again, the point here is that we do not want to say that we all want to use the same tools, but then our tools should handshake with each other. There should be some way to integrate. There should be some way to collaborate, so that in the burden of the tools, we do not lose focus of what are we here to achieve. So in that perspective, we want to ensure that our tools do handshake and do collaborate, and we have the goal in mind. Not the tool doesn't take predominance over what the goal of achieving a good service delivery or good service quality is. Okay, and then of course we talk about cultures. And this is, as I said, it's about, are we all in one team, or do I say I'm a development team and I'm a network guy, and you're a storage guy and you're an ops guy? Yeah. So we have this, and this built into the system. And unfortunately, this is going to be the most difficult to break, right? We have got used to working as independent teams with collaboration, but not to the extent that we want to be. So here in DevOps, and I like the way we have put it there, a team of skilled professionals with the right attitude. Now, this is important. You need to have the right attitude. You need to have the right behavior, and of course, you want to be motivated to work. And we talk about experimentation, learning, continual improvement. They're all part of the DevOps ethos of working together and adopting a new culture, a culture that is different from what we are used to. Okay, now this is what I do in my class. Okay, before I go on to this, I just want to see if we have any questions on these 5 factors. Just more. Okay, so now when we talk about these different factors being addressed, uh, we have to think about how we can bring multidisciplinary teams together. That means we talk about different SMEs coming together to work. Now we'll talk about how we organize. It doesn't mean you bring everyone put together, but there should be someone allocated to work on your daily scrums. Typically developers, and maybe a couple of guys from QA and some guy from operations to bring about the operational aspect into your daily scrums. But here we say that who take end-to-end responsibility to deliver customer value early and often. So we want to ensure that we deliver value as early as possible and as often as possible, but at the same time always ensuring that we continue to improve the process. Now, you would see that our process may be flawed, maybe it is biased towards certain particular activities, in which case we want to sort of change it and tweak it and adjust it. Okay, and Adrian Young he has written a good book on adapting to DevOps. If you just Google around, you'll find many of these things there. Yeah, we talked about this, so I'll just go on to the last slide. Now, who is doing DevOps? There's pretty much everyone is doing DevOps. If you're not doing DevOps, you will be doing it very, very soon, maybe as close as this year itself. The world is adopting it. They have seen the benefits, they see the value, and there is no stopping them from pushing for DevOps, because it promises good quality. It promises them early time to deliver a service, and also at high minimal cost. Operational cost comes down, so naturally people are really pushing for it. Okay, so that brought me to the end of this session. Now it's time for you to ask some questions Else we can just stop at this point.